This is the story of a man named Edmund, prisoner who was deceitfully sentenced to 12 years in the world's most dangerous prison, one from which no one had ever escaped. But a fateful encounter with a mysterious man inside that prison would eventually change his life forever. The story begins with a group of men approaching an island by boat. These men are employees of a merchant ship, and their captain is severely ill. They arrive at the island called Elba in search of medical assistance. As two of the men, Edmund and his friend Mondego, disembark, they are suddenly confronted by British soldiers stationed on the island. Just before the soldiers can detain them, a man intervenes, none other than Napoleon Bonaparte himself, the former French emperor who had been exiled and kept under constant watch by the British. To prevent him from sending messages or making contact with the outside world, Napoleon, after learning that Edmund and his crew are merely seeking medical aid, allows them to receive treatment. He is impressed by Edmund's loyalty and bravery in trying to save his captain's life. That night, Napoleon takes Edmund aside and secretly hands him a letter, instructing him to deliver it to a man named Monsieur Clarion. He warns Edmund to tell no one about the letter, not even his friend. However, Mondego sees this exchange. From a distance, Edmund keeps the secret and returns to his room. Later, their captain dies, and the crew returns to their shipping company. Because of Edmund's courageous decisions, he is promoted to captain, a title that fills him with joy. He rushes home to share the news with his fiancée, Mercedes. But his joy is short-lived. Shortly afterward, royal guards arrive at his house and arrest him. They take him to a magistrate, who is already aware of the letter Napoleon entrusted to Edmund. When questioned, Edmund tells the truth. He still has the letter, never delivered it, and no one ever came to retrieve it. Hands it over to the magistrate, who reads it and reveals it contains detailed information about British troop positions, clearly part of an escape plan for Napoleon. Edmund insists he had no idea what was in the letter. The magistrate appears to believe him and pretends to release him, even offering to send him home in a carriage. But once Edmund is locked inside the carriage, he realizes he's being betrayed. He escapes and rushes to Mondego, confessing everything about the letter. To his shock, Mondego reveals he already knew he had seen Napoleon give him the letter, and had secretly read it while Edmund was asleep. Worse still, he was the one who informed the magistrate. Edmund is devastated. Mondego's betrayal stemmed from jealousy. He too loved Mercedes. When Edmund tries to leave, Mondego threatens him with a sword. A duel follows, but Edmund is not skilled enough and loses. Guards arrive and take Edmund to a desolate prison island known as Chateau d'If, a place from which no one has ever escaped. There, Edmund is brought before the warden. He protests his innocence, to which the warden replies that he knows Edmund is innocent. If he were guilty, he would have been imprisoned in a French jail, not here. He then proceeds to brutally beat Edmund, saying he gives every new prisoner this gift. Edmund is then thrown into a tiny dark cell with just a small window and a wooden door that opens only once a year. When the warden comes to beat the prisoners, time passes. 1 year turns into 4. Edmund becomes hopeless and even attempts to take his own life. But then he sees something carved into the wall. "God will give me justice." These words stop him from ending his life. However, as more years go by, his faith begins to fade. One day, he hears something from beneath the ground. A man named Abbé Faria breaks through into Edmund's cell. Faria had been digging a tunnel for 5 years, believing it would lead him out of the prison, only to end up in Edmund's cell by mistake. He's been imprisoned for 11 years and now needs Edmund's help. He climbs on Edmund's shoulders to look out the tiny window, and for the first time in 11 years, he sees the sky, a sight that fills him with joy. Faria realizes he had dug in the wrong direction, but now, with Edmund's help, they can finish the tunnel and escape in 8 more years. Edmund, who's already spent 7 years in prison, laughs at the idea. But Faria offers him something in exchange: everything he has ever learned. Over time, he teaches Edmund subjects like science, philosophy, economics, and mathematics. He even trains him in sword fighting. Their plan involves removing dirt from the tunnel and hiding it in Edmund's toilet bucket, which the guards empty daily. Slowly, Edmund becomes a master of knowledge, wisdom, and combat. One day, Faria reveals his own past. He once served in Napoleon's army, but later became secretary to a wealthy and noble man. After the man died, rumors spread that he had hidden a great treasure. Napoleon wanted that treasure, so Faria was arrested. Though he knew nothing of the treasure's location, he was imprisoned and tortured for information. Edmund, in turn, shares his full story with Faria, explaining how the magistrate initially believed him, but suddenly changed his mind after asking who the letter was meant for. When Edmund replied, "Monsieur Clarion," the magistrate immediately burned the letter. Faria finds this suspicious. Why would a magistrate destroy such vital evidence of treason unless he had a personal reason? Then it all clicks for Edmund. The person who was supposed to retrieve the letter was none other than the magistrate's father, former colonel in Napoleon's army. This revelation changes everything and sets Edmund on the path toward vengeance and justice. If the magistrate's father had been accused of treason, it would have destroyed his career. He too would have been branded a traitor and punished severely. That's why he burned the letter, to protect himself and his family's name. At last, everything becomes clear to Edmund. As Edmund and Faria continue digging, they finally reach the roots of a tree, meaning they're close to the surface. Just a few weeks more, and they'll be free. Edmund goes to get a chisel, but as he moves slightly out of the tunnel, the ceiling collapses. Before Faria can climb out, heavy stones fall on him. Edmund drags him out, but Faria is mortally wounded. With his last breath, Faria confesses that he had lied earlier. He does know where the treasure is. He gives Edmund a map and tells him about an island off the Italian coast called Monte Cristo, where a vast treasure is hidden. Faria urges Edmund to use it for good, to help others, and then dies. Suddenly, guards arrive. Edmund hides under the collapsed tunnel, while the guards wrap Faria's body in a cloth and leave to inform the warden. Edmund realizes that dead prisoners are locked in chains and thrown into the sea, so he swaps places with Faria's corpse, placing the body in his cell and crawling into the sack himself. The warden returns. The guards chain the sack shut, preparing to toss it into the ocean. As they count to 3, Edmund's hand bursts out and grabs the warden's key, pulling him into the sea. Edmund breaks free from the chains, surfaces, and kills the warden who had tortured him for years. Then he swims to a nearby island, his first breath of freedom after 13 long years. There he sees a group of pirates about to kill one of their own, a man named Jacopo who betrayed them. But some pirates believe he should be spared. Their leader suggests a duel between Jacopo and Edmund. Whoever wins joins their crew. Edmund wins the knife fight, but spares Jacopo's life, telling the leader that such a skilled man would be a valuable ally. Impressed, the leader agrees, and Jacopo pledges eternal loyalty to Edmund. The group leaves the island. Edmund and Jacopo travel to Monte Cristo Island using Faria's map. After a long search, they finally discover the treasure buried beneath the sea chests, overflowing with gold and jewels, far too much to carry in one trip. It's a fortune so vast that even a lifetime of spending couldn't exhaust it. Edmund uses some of it to buy a grand palace in Paris. He changes his identity and now calls himself the Count of Monte Cristo. He begins investigating his old enemies, starting with Mondego. He discovers that Mondego is deep in debt, having taken massive loans from a bank. Edmund secretly buys that bank and blocks all trade deals with Mondego's shipping business, isolating him financially. But he still needs a way to get close to Mondego's family, so he orchestrates a fake kidnapping of Mondego's son, Albert, and then pretends to heroically rescue him. Grateful, Albert invites him to dinner and introduces him to his father Mondego, but Mondego fails to recognize Edmund, whose appearance has completely changed. The former friend now sees only a wealthy aristocrat, not the man he betrayed. During the party, Edmund dances with Mercedes, his former fiancée, who now lives as Mondego's wife. She begins to suspect the Count's true identity. Meanwhile, Mondego schemes to steal a shipment of gold Edmund is expecting at the port. He contacts an old friend to help one who had once betrayed Edmund out of jealousy when Edmund was made ship captain years ago. But as they attempt the theft, Edmund arrives with the police. His old betrayer is arrested on the spot. Edmund then confronts the magistrate, Villefort, who is now a chief prosecutor in Paris. Edmund reveals that Villefort's father was the intended recipient of Napoleon's letter, and that Villefort burned the letter to cover up his family's treason. Villefort admits it, but smugly says Edmund can never prove it. Edmund replies that Villefort just didn't from behind a smokescreen. The police emerge and arrest Villefort for conspiracy and murder of his own father. Meanwhile, Mondego tries to flee the city, wanted for fraud, treason, and now murder. Edmund confronts him, revealing his true identity. Mondego attacks with a sword, but Edmund, now a master swordsman thanks to Faria, defeats him in a single blow. As he's about to kill him, Mondego's son Albert intervenes. Edmund restrains Albert and prepares to end Mondego's life, but is stopped by Mercedes, who begs him to spare their son the pain of losing his father. Edmund walks away, leaving Mondego to face justice. In the end, Edmund returns to Chateau d'If, the prison where he suffered for 13 years. He buys the entire place, vowing that no one should ever endure the torment he did. He dedicates the rest of his life and his fortune to truth, justice, and helping others. Just as Abbé Faria had taught him. Before dying, he gave Edmund the treasure mapanned. With this emotional moment, the movie comes to an end. Which movie would you like to hear about next? Let me know in the comments below, because I read all your comments. Sand, thank you so much for your kind and lovely messages.